Still, my dad would give me regular updates whenever Tom would go back to New Orleans on leave. Once Tom told my father that they'd done computer simulations of a terrorist running up an airplane aisle, and the only part that stayed relatively motionless was the groin. Obviously, in an airplane, you want to hit the target and not the fuselage, so they decided to aim for the groin as part of their doctrine. My dad was a physician and told Tom that there would be a tremendous amount of bleeding, and that would be a problem if they wanted to take anyone alive. Being a curious man, my dad set about coming up with a solution to this in his free time. He sketched out a sort of jock strap with a hemostatic agent where the cup would be and gave it to Tom. And Tom came back to him some months later and said that a prominent pharmaceutical company was making a prototype. My dad didn't want money or credit. He was just happy to have been involved in solving a small problem for his country. After the Iraq invasion, Tom left the Air Marshal Program and worked on Condoleezza Rice's staff as a national security aide. All in all, everyone loved Tom. He and my dad became very good friends in a few short years. Tom took my brother's kids to Saints games. They lived in family neighborhoods where everyone was always sitting on the porch and visiting with each other in the summer. Tom would swing by some evenings, and my niece and nephew and all the neighborhood kids would come running, yelling, "Mr. Tom," as they do in the South. I was mobilized in 2004, and my father died shortly before I deployed to Iraq. I went to New Orleans on emergency leave, and my brothers, their wives, my sister, my girlfriend, and I drove to Grand Isle, Louisiana to scatter his ashes in the Gulf. Tom wore his full dress uniform. After the ashes were in the water, Tom removed his white gloves and threw them in as well. I'd not known this tradition before, but I was touched by it. He choked back tears and had a lump in his voice. Later, he took my sister and me to an expensive dinner at one of the finest restaurants in New Orleans and told us he was always there for us. Anything we needed, anytime. I fell out of touch with Tom after deploying and coming home. When Katrina hit, I called my sister-in-law Maggie to see if everyone was okay. I asked about Tom, and she said, "Oh my God, you didn't hear about Mr. Tom?" I tensed up and said, "No. What happened?" What she said settled over me slowly like slime. Maggie's neighborhood was underwater, and she, my brother, and her kids went to a friend's house on high ground. There were a dozen others there in the same situation. One of them was Tom's older sister, who would have been in her 80s. She and Maggie knew each other by name and reputation, but had not met until then. Maggie introduced herself and asked after Tom. His sister was worried, as she'd not heard from him since the storm. Maggie said, "Well, I wouldn't worry. I bet the government has a list of VIPs to check on, and Mr. Tom is surely on it." Tom's sister said, "Maggie, I don't know what Tom has told you, but not a general, not a ranger, no Air Marshal Program, no Condoleezza Rice, no Colin Powell, no bleeding out through the groin problem for my dad to waste his time solving. No nothing. Tom was in fact a penny ante lawyer. What was true was that Tom's sister's deceased husband was a Korea vet, a ranger, a high ranker, and a spook. Tom grew up admiring everything about his brother-in-law. At some point, Tom's dreary real-life lawyer job faded from his reality, and his fantasies replaced them. The truly sick and disturbing thing